All right, so we are connected. Good morning, good afternoon. I guess it's different times of the day. You'll be listening to it at all in all parts of the world, I hope. I'm Ashim Kumar, and you'll know me as, or many of you will know me as an SPL trainer and a leadership coach and trainer. And I'm really proud to be presenting Dat Nguyen or Dat Than. Which do you prefer, Dat? Dat
Dat
Than?
Nguyen is fine.
Dat Nguyen is okay. I'm proud to
Yep.
be presenting Dat Nguyen. He's one of my students whom I taught remotely and who is based in Vietnam. And I thought really it'd be a really good idea to invite Dat along and ask him to share his experience of SBL, the preparation, the exam itself, and so on, in the hope that it will give some guidance to existing students so that they have a better idea of what to expect. So that's enough from me. I'd like to hand over to Dat. Dat, the floor is yours. Perhaps you could say a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your ACCA journey.
Definitely. So thank you very much, Ashim. Yep. A quick introduction about myself. My name is Dat, and I'm currently in charge for finance and accounting in a German company called Robert Bosch, and I'm based in Vietnam. So, yep, as already mentioned, so I work full time. So ACCA is actually a part-time job for me that I took after the work hours, spend a few hours afternoon to do the ACCA on top of my daily work. So, short summary of my ACC journey. Actually, it is a very short one because I graduated with a Bachelor of Accountancy. So I got exempted for all the 9 papers. So SBL is the first paper I ever sat for ACCA.
Wow.
So yeah, so it actually I was a bit scared definitely because I haven't sat for an exam since like I left college 7 years ago. So that's why, of course, my advice and I would strongly suggest. So if anyone got full exempted and for your first exam, you should definitely get a coach and a tutor to help you through. And I'm very glad that I picked FTMS and also together with Ashim as my online coach for this SPL course. So I think that the really interesting part about SBL is that I didn't spend a lot of time studying for it. So I think the course duration is 80 hours. So I of course attended all the courses for that entire 80 hours. And on top of that, I think I spent about 3 or 5 more days extra to read through the knowledge, practice some questions, practice some exam papers, and yeah, and I think that's all for the preparation.
Okay.
Uh,
Sorry, Dat, sorry to interrupt you, but you've said a couple of really interesting things. So if you don't mind, before you continue, I'd like to ask you about those first. The first thing you said that kind of made my ears perk up was that, you know, the last time you took an examination was at university, and then there was a long gap before you started your ACCA, and SBL was your first professional examination. How would you compare academic examinations with the professional examinations? Was it very different?
uh, yes, I would say completely different because as mentioned a lot during the courses and also during our time together that the professional is all about how you apply the knowledge in real life. And I didn't recall a lot of papers, or I would say none of that many paper I did in university actually asked me to how it would apply into the real world situation. So I took accounting in university, so very much basic. We got taught how to do debit, credit, and then the exam question is exactly the same with a bit more twist. So I would say SBL is completely different from all the academic courses I did in university.
Okay, and so the second thing is with all these exemptions that you got, because we both know that SBL requires some assumed knowledge from earlier papers, how did you kind of deal with that assumed knowledge? So, for example, with financial management, needing to know what NPV meant, and various other things about corporate structure and corporate governance, which are studied in the earlier papers. But you hadn't studied them in the ACCA curriculum. So how did you cope with that lack of, if you like, academic knowledge in those areas?
I think that's actually my initial worry because there's a lot of assumed knowledge on risk management, corporate structure, and financial management that I haven't touched for quite some time. But I mean, after all, because ACCA is quite careful on how they get the exemption, so they make sure that the university partners equip their students with all those knowledge. So I wouldn't say I start from zero. So I have all those knowledge a bit rusty because already
Hmm.
7 years. It already at the adequate level, but I think this is where the benefit, the real advantage of uh, how you call it, the cost tutor can do for the student, especially those got exempted, so that during the course, uh, you show me where to focus. Like you let us know how much theory I need to know about it. Like I didn't know the whole framework of risk management. I know enough 6 steps and some simple application that I can deal with for the questions. So at first I thought I would have to spend like hour. Actually, I did plan before I attended the course. I did plan that every afternoon I would read up on one chapter, try to catch up on all those knowledges. But then in the end, it turned out it's not necessary. We just need to know enough theory, very basic level, uh, and then that's it. It's all about how you apply it in the questions. So I would say it didn't put me at the disadvantage. Actually, I think it put me somehow at a more advantage because I didn't know the knowledge. So I could not write a lot of knowledge.
Right.
So it's all about application. Yes.
Absolutely. So would you say that the experience that you've gained since leaving university was really helpful because you had the practical application experience and you simply continued to think in that way with SBL? Is that a fair thing to say?
Uh, I would say it because I did look through the curriculum a bit before I attended the courses, and also in the first few lessons, and also a few first exercise question when you gave us the questions, the thought, the initial thought is still try to apply the theory to answer the questions. So there was a period I was a bit hesitate because the answer I gave might make commercial sense, but it didn't use any of the application, a theory that we have been taught in classes. So I think application is one thing, but it really took a very strong, how you say it, it really took a good advice to keep the student away from the theory because a lot of time, even during the exam and when I revise the courses, it's very tempted for me to repeat a lot of theories because then I worry, would I got the point, the mark if I didn't repeat the theory? So I would say that there is a temptation to quote repeat the theories. And actually I'm very glad that you keep repeating the points almost at every single lesson. So it just stick to my mind. Yeah.
Good,
Every time
good.
the temptation came, then I would thought, no, Ashi would then shout again at me and say, don't repeat the theory. So, so it did help that you repeat it, not just one, twice, but almost every single lesson. Yeah. So,
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's really important, as you just said, because a lot of students, we both know SBL is very different, and a lot of students are very tempted to answer the questions theoretically, and it's a common and repetitive complaint of the examiner, that okay, yes, we need a solid theoretical foundation. Yes, we need an understanding of some frameworks, but the frameworks are not there to be repeated in the exam, but they're there for us as a tool around which to develop a practical answer. And I think that once students kind of get that in their head, and then they practice doing it with homework questions and so on, then they start to do it automatically. And obviously, it worked very well for you. Um, and I'd like to, at this stage, share with our audience how well it worked. This is Dat's result, which I think, excuse me, which I think speaks for itself. An amazing 89% in SBL. So I was actually talking to a friend of mine who does a lot of marking for SBL for the ACCA. And he said he had never, I mean, he's marked hundreds, if not thousands of scripts. And in all that time, he's only marked two scripts where students have got in their 80s, but he's never come across an 89. So again, that an amazing achievement. Many congratulations again, because especially with a written subject, it is so difficult to gain the really high marks. Much more so, I would suggest, than with the numerical subjects, where there is a correct procedure and there is a correct or incorrect answer. With SBL, because the whole area is so much grayer, where there aren't absolutely correct or absolutely incorrect answers. To gain that kind of mark is just really absolutely amazing, and I really hope that you will receive recognition for this. Have you heard anything from the ACCA about this?
Not yet, Asim, but yes,
Okay.
I'm very happy with the grade and also for my first ACCA paper. So it left a very positive result because I mean, coming out straight out of university, we always say that we got taught one thing and exam the other. But this is one of the first course I took that whatever I have been taught, the exam come out very much the same. I mean, in
Great.
terms of technique and how you answer the questions and everything.
Absolutely delighted to hear that, and as I say, that worked. Tell me, a lot of students see SBL as a theoretical paper, and they feel that they can just read the textbook, read the syllabus, and sit the exam and just do some blah blah. But clearly, you didn't feel that way. You felt that you wanted some kind of direction through a course and so on. So maybe you can talk us through briefly how you decided to use a course rather than study on your own.
Uh, but again, the question how I decide to
Yeah,
use.
so you attended the course with FTMS where I was teaching you. Um, how did you decide that you wanted to attend a course rather than actually study on your own?
Yeah, so actually, I did because this is my first ACCA paper, so I did a lot of research on it. Especially, I got exempted for 9 modules,
Hmm.
so I did definitely did a lot of research. I actually got a textbook a bit older than the one we use, but also from BPP learning, and I looked through the technique and I thought to myself, this is not doable. How
Right.
can you read through like 700 pages of theories within 3 months and get to answer all the questions? And when I look at some of the past paper exam, it didn't make sense. Like this theory, I didn't know how it fit into answer the question. So that's when I decided, okay, then that's I definitely need a provider coach for this course. So I signed up for FTMS, and I think the really interesting, as I already mentioned many times, is that in the coach, you got to see how the theory applied to answer the questions, and not
Mm-hmm.
just the question, but also apply to work, like in real life work situation.
Right.
And a lot of theories and knowledge that I got taught in the courses helped me beyond the ACCA courses. So just a very interesting
Mm-hmm.
story. So I'm actually doing a risk register for one of my
Oh,
department. Yes,
great.
I have always do it. I mean, we always list out some risks and what to do about it,
Yeah.
but do it in a proper way with a risk register and review it, and then you know how
Yeah.
to mitigate it. That's actually put a whole different perspective on my work. So I
Oh,
think that the
wonderful.
theories and the application from SBL is what do you call it, clear and
Hmm.
immediately for those who work in accounting and finance.
Hmm.
And I think so far, yeah, I don't have, and yeah, I think I'm glad that I picked the course and get to work through all the theory. And I think the part that I like the most is your teaching is really straight to the point. There's no extra, and there is no more and no less. And what I love a lot, which is gave me a very satisfying feeling, is when you ask us to skip through all the redundant part. I mean, I was just so happy we got to skip hundreds of pages when you said no, skip that, and I mean the first few lessons I didn't. I still read through all of it, but
Yeah,
then I
yeah.
guess the trust built up, and then in the end, yeah, I just follow all your advices and just focus on the important part, and the rest I just skip it. And I'm actually amazed that after about I think 40, 60 hours, we got through 16, 17 chapters in the textbook. That was
Yes.
amazing. That was amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, the textbooks that we use contain the entire curriculum, but with the time constraints under which we're working, what I try and do is kind of distill down the core principles that we need and focus on those during our time together, and make sure that you're solid on those. And yeah, I mean, there are other areas which could add value to your answer, but at the end of the day, we need to find some kind of balance, and so I try and make it as digestible, if you like, as possible in the limited time that we work towards. And as I say, clearly that worked for you and many of your colleagues. I think the results were pretty good across the board, really, in your groups. So tell me, I wanted to ask about remote learning. How, I mean, did you find there was some advantages, disadvantages, or what were those compared to, let's say, face to face? What were your feelings about remote learning?
I think, I mean, for me, remote learning, as in the first part, it's actually very convenient. You got to do it in the comfort of your home. You
Right.
can take a coffee, water, snack, whatever you want. It's a bit more restrictive if you sit in the classroom. Yeah, so that definitely is the advantage. So
True.
that's actually, I think, the biggest advantage of remote learning. The disadvantage, I would say, nothing much, but there's just one point, and I think it's actually because it's new to everyone, is on the
Mm.
discussion. The discussion at the end of the section, which is very, very useful. I would find it very useful, but unfortunately, because of the remote and then, with the breakout room and everything, we couldn't really do a group work. So I think that's the only part that didn't function as intended.
Mm.
But the entire learning experience, remote learning for me, it makes no difference to face-to-face learning. And I would say to some extent, I would prefer it
Yeah.
a bit more. Yeah,
Because of the flexibility that it offers.
definitely the
Yeah.
flexibility and the comfort as well. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
convenient.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really fair point. That absolutely. Yeah. It is a little bit more, if you like, demanding to get everybody engaged with the breakout rooms and so on. And with a subject like SBL, that is important because, as we said throughout, it's important that you all share knowledge and thoughts and ideas amongst yourselves, because in that way, everybody in the group grows. But nonetheless, I noticed that there was quite a lot of engagement. I mean, it was quite a big group. I think there were about 60 in total,
Yeah.
something like that. So I think the majority of participants did get involved. I think also
And the
some.
Kahoot is interesting. The Kahoot is interesting.
Oh, you like the quizzes?
Yes, sir. I love it. I actually use it at work as well.
Do you?
In what yeah, in one of the recent meetings in my department, we
Yeah.
use it to get everyone feedback. Yeah, that's
Oh,
something
great.
new. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of fun. It breaks up the kind of the routine, of the standard meeting or the standard lecture, and yeah, and of course it becomes a little bit competitive. Who's on the leaderboard and how that changes through the different questions. Who comes up from nowhere is suddenly number three. And that's a lot of fun. So I'm glad you enjoyed that. So if you were to be advising, imagine you're advising somebody in your organization or a friend of yours, um, who's thinking about, who's sitting SBL in the near future. What would you ask them to think about, or what would you suggest to them in terms of how to best prepare themselves for the exam?
Yeah, I think this one actually a tough one because my answer would be very biased.
Of
I mean,
course.
if you need my answer within one sentence, it would be listen to everything Ashim tell you.
Thank
Then
you.
that could be the shortest version. So, but yeah, I mean we have to be a bit more specific. So yeah. On top of it, I think the first one is really uh get a good uh coach and a good tutor who can walk you through all the theories because it's actually form the foundation for all your answers. And I think that the second thing is it's all about application, how you get to apply the knowledge, the theories into the questions. I think it's more about how you deal with the situation given in the scenario instead of trying to answer it as an exam.
Right.
So for myself, I answered the question as in I was the analyst who worked for that charity foundation and not someone who just tried to answer the questions. I try to
Brilliant.
take on the role and understand, okay, they have some challenges, they got problem with funding and they have to protect all the animals. So what should they do that make commercial sense?
Right.
So I think that the application is definitely the second part. And I think the third part is also to prepare mentally and physically for a 4 hours
Yeah.
exercise. That's that didn't come easily.
Oh, I bet.
So yeah, so you should get used to it. And I think last is really about time management. The
Hmm.
moment the time ran out, then just move on to the next questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think just those simple tips. Actually, really, I didn't do much extra beyond the 80 hours we spent together. And of course, you told us to do some past year paper, and I didn't complete all of that. I did a few more, but not all of that. But I think, yeah, that's all I did. And I think it all comes down to if you know the trick of the SDL exam, and I think you
Right.
highlighted all those points very clearly in your articles. I think it comes down to all those tricks, and if you do it, take all the notes necessary during the courses, apply what has been taught, how to answer the question, how to approach the question. I think it should come easily, eh, at
Brilliant.
least for me.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good advice, Dirk. Thank you very much. Very valuable to students of SBL. How just you mentioned the time management, which of course is critical, and again, a very common reason for failure of students at SBL, but also in other exams. How did you find the time management? I mean, on the one hand, it's a longer exam; it's 4 hours. The others are, 3 hours 15, including reading time. Um, but even so, time management is really critical. How did you kind of feel about that when you were sitting the exam itself? Were you tight on time? Was it fairly easy to be on time? What were your feelings about that?
For me, I got the impression that time is tight, but if you stick to good time management rule, like if you set yourself 20 minutes for question one, and then
Hmm.
by the end of 20 minutes, you might be halfway, you might be
Yeah,
one third through it, but you have to have the what you call it, the will and determination to move on to the next question. That
absolutely.
is something not so easy for me in the first few papers. Of course, there are certain questions you want to write a lot more. But then again, we have to stick to it. And I think the best way is really practice. The first paper will be difficult. You wouldn't want to move on. The second paper get easier, and the third paper, I think you get used to it. And by the time the hour run out for certain question, you just stop and move on.
Move
I
on.
think it's all about
Absolutely.
practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, thank you. That's so valuable because I'm sure the other thing you must remember from my teaching is me going on, move on, move on. You've got to move on when your time
Exactly.
runs
Yeah,
out. I think
exactly. Yeah.
you probably heard it in your dreams, you know. You think, get out of my head, Ashim. I don't want to hear you. I'm sleeping. That's one. And actually, just one final question. You've been so helpful. Um, in terms of the, you mentioned the actual mental and physical demands of sitting a 4-hour paper. Um, I mean, it is exhausting because you're using your mental energy all the time. So, how did you prepare for that before you went in? What did you do? Did you do anything different, special?
Oh, I did have a good sleep,
Very
and I
important.
took a day off from work,
Right.
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think, and also I think, it's because I practice for it, especially during the right time, like for us in Vietnam, the exam is in the mid of afternoon, so it's
Ah,
run from I think 2 p.m. to 6 p.m.
okay.
So you get kind of sleepy after a big lunch. So
Right.
that's why I think a few days before the exam, I just stopped, try not to get some quick nap after 12 p.m. so that to get myself mentally ready for it. And then
Fantastic. Hmm.
I think during the exam itself, the planning is quite crucial because I remember closer to the end of the exam, like at 3:30, 3:45, everything I write, I just look at the plan and keep writing. My mind just froze already at that point. So if you
Hmm.
didn't have a good planning, and let's say if you have 15 minutes and then one question's left, the chance would be you wouldn't know what to write
Right.
because it's already too late. You say so many things, you got so many information scattered around, so you wouldn't have time to gather and finish the last question in 15 minutes. So I think the planning is important because at the end, when your brain stops functioning, is the plan that will help you at least got something to write.
Right. Something. Oh, fantastic advice. Absolutely. And I think, again, you've highlighted the importance of the plan that we talked about quite a lot in the course, how we plan. And again, that's part of the overall exam technique. What I've found is some students say too much in their plan and some don't say enough. But things like, analyzing the requirements, identifying your time availability, and also just putting down some key issues that come to mind as you analyze the requirements really help to trigger some ideas even later on when your mind is tired. So that kind of gives you the framework to continue. So that's really really useful advice. Thank you so much, Dad. I'm really, again, so happy for you and so many congratulations. My only question is, when is your celebration party? Because I'm expecting an invitation, okay? And coronavirus or no coronavirus, I'm coming. I might
Definitely, I
have to
will.
be in quarantine for 2 weeks before, so you have to give me some notice. But I'll be very happy to join you for that.
Definitely, definitely. I assume you'll be on the guest list if you ever get back to Vietnam again after all of these things. Yeah,
Well,
but
I'm hoping to do that as soon as possible. As soon as possible. So, listen, thank you again for taking the time out from your day, Dat. I just want to mention to everybody that when I spoke to Dat about this yesterday, it was around 11 p.m. and he'd only just come back from work. So, he's got a very, very busy schedule and a very responsible role. And so I want to, thank you especially for helping other students with your experience. So thank you again, and good luck in the future. And I look forward to seeing you on my next trip to Vietnam. Take care of
Definitely. Thank
yourself now.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much as well, Asim. So, yep, it's a great pleasure studying with you. And thanks for making my first impression of ACCA exam much more pleasurable than I would have imagined. I couldn't believe that the first one was so fun and so applicable,
Yeah.
like that. I got to use it immediately. So, yep, thank you very much for that. And all the best to you
My
as
absolute
well.
pleasure. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye bye now.
Bye
Cheers.
bye. See you.